Fiona was absolutely certain that Jamie was still alive and living somewhere on Roan Island. She knew the only way to convince her grandparents was to find solid proof, so she quietly resolved to uncover the truth on her own. One day, while accompanying her grandmother into town for supplies, she ran into a man named Tag, her father's cousin. He shared an old and mysterious family legend with her. Long ago, a man named Liam had been wandering alone along a remote beach when he spotted a lone seal resting on the rocks. Since seals usually traveled in groups, he wondered why this one was by itself. Hiding behind the rocks, Liam watched as the seal slowly slipped off its skin and transformed into a woman. Remembering another part of the legend that said anyone who hit a silver seal's skin could make the creature stay with them, Liam quietly swam over and stole the seal skin while the woman slept. When she awoke, she searched everywhere for the skin that would let her return to the sea. But without it, she had no choice but to remain on land. Liam brought her back to the village, where everyone simply assumed she was a traveler from somewhere else. Before long, Liam proposed, and she accepted. He gave her the name Nuala. After they married, Nuala became a devoted wife who took wonderful care of the family. Every time she returned from the shore, she brought home baskets full of shellfish and seaweed, providing more than enough food for everyone. Their first child was soon born, and Nuala asked Liam to build the baby's cradle from the same wood used for making boats. The finished cradle looked less like a crib and more like a tiny boat. She would gently set the baby inside and let it float on the calm water, where the child always slept peacefully. As the years passed, Nuala gave birth to many more children, yet she often stood alone on the shoreline, silently gazing toward the open sea. Then one day, her oldest daughter innocently mentioned that their father had hidden an animal skin in the roof. In an instant, Nuala understood everything. She handed the baby in her arms to her daughter without saying a word and walked straight back to the house. That evening, as Liam rowed home, a seal followed closely behind his boat. Its eyes were filled with unbearable sadness before it slowly disappeared into the deep ocean. A terrible feeling washed over Liam, and he rowed frantically back to shore. When he finally arrived home that night, the expressions on his children's faces confirmed his worst fear. Nuala had found her sealskin and returned to the sea. From that day on, the Connolly family made it a rule that humans and seals should live together peacefully on the island. Even after leaving, Nuala was often seen surfacing offshore, quietly watching her children from afar. As generation followed generation, every other generation of the family welcomed a child with black hair and deep dark eyes, a sign that Nuala's blood still ran through their veins. Looking at Fiona, Tag explained that the missing Jamie was one of those children. According to the legend, the waves hadn't carried off his cradle by accident at all. The island's seals had taken him away to raise and protect him. After hearing the story, Fiona became even more convinced that her little brother was still alive. She eagerly asked Tag what it would take to bring Jamie home. Tag told her the only way was for the entire family to move back to Roan Island, and only then would the seals return the child. On the way home, Fiona wanted to persuade her grandparents to move back so Jamie could finally be reunited with his family. But then she realized they would never believe a word she said, so she kept the thought to herself. Not long afterward, she learned that her grandparents would be attending a meeting in town the next day, and a bold plan immediately began to take shape. That afternoon, Fiona told her cousin Eamon everything she had heard about the seal legend at the market. Eamon wasn't completely convinced, but he couldn't say no after Fiona pleaded with him, so he agreed to take her to the island to see for themselves. Early the next morning, after watching her grandparents leave for their meeting, Fiona climbed aboard Eamon's small fishing boat, and together they set sail for Roan Island. On the way out to sea, Eamon repeatedly reminded Fanny that once they reached the island, she was not to wander off on her own. After he finished setting the fishing nets, he would come back for her right away. Fanny eagerly agreed, but the moment her feet touched Roan Island, every word of his warning went in one ear and out the other. Figuring it would take Eamon quite a while to finish with the nets, she headed up the hillside by herself. Suddenly, she spotted a silver-gray seal lying on a rock. As if sensing her presence, the seal lifted its head and locked eyes with her. Its cold, piercing gaze sent a chill straight through her, and she quickly turned away. After crossing a hillside blanketed with blooming flowers, she reached the opposite slope. Just as she glanced back, a small figure caught her eye. A little boy was happily running around on the hillside. Excited, Fanny shouted to get his attention. The boy heard her, spun around, and sprinted toward the shore. By the time Fanny reached the beach, little Jamie had already climbed into the tiny wooden boat shaped like a cradle and was drifting farther and farther out with the tide. Panicked, Fanny rushed back down the hill and told Eamon everything she had just witnessed. At first, he assumed she had imagined the whole thing, but after listening to her detailed and coherent account, he finally believed she was telling the truth. Even so, he repeatedly warned her that she could never let her grandparents find out she had sneaked onto the island that day, or they would never bring her back to Roan Island again. When they returned home, Grandma shared some devastating news. The house they were renting had been sold to a wealthy overseas businessman, and the family would have to move out within a month. Seeing the worry written all over her grandmother's face, a bold idea began taking shape in Fanny's mind. Before dawn the next morning, Grandpa and Eamon got ready to head out fishing. Fanny followed behind them, hoping to go along, but Grandpa stopped her, leaving her no choice but to wait on the shore. She watched their boat disappear into the thick fog. Not long afterward, splashing sounds echoed across the water. Something seemed to be swimming back and forth beneath the surface. Overcome with curiosity, she slowly walked down the steps into the water and climbed into the small wooden boat tied to the dock. The instant she settled in, the boat mysteriously began drifting away from the shore. Fanny called out for help in a panic, but the beach was completely deserted. All she could do was sit there helplessly as the current carried the little boat farther and farther away from land.